Yeah.
So you've also been incorporating seed saving into, I'm assuming, the biodiversity element of the work. What have you learned or seen here?
I mean, I'm part of a Scottish seed saving network, because what happened was in Scotland used to have like varieties that had been bred specifically for the Scottish climate, and we lost them all. So when, again, with the loss of smaller scale market gardens and all that stuff, it just disappeared. But I'm friends with seed hunters who have found a cabbage that was grown on the island of Skye for hundreds of years. They've managed to find the seed in Ireland, and then there's a bean that like Richie managed to find in a gene bank somewhere, and there's something else that he found in a seed bank in New Zealand and got it sent over, and Czech Republic he found something else that he found in the Czech Republic. So there's this like sort of, as a group, we're collectively trying to bring back varieties that have been lost. Like there's tomato and onion varieties that were bred specifically for Scotland as well. And the thing is, if we can find those varieties that grow really well in Scotland and save the seed and sell it, everybody wants seed from Scotland, because if you can grow it in Scotland, you can grow it anywhere.
If you can't, you're doing something wrong.
So that's the idea. So there's a group of us set up this Scottish seed hub that will eventually be selling our own seed. That's all varieties that have been bred specifically for Scotland. But then also with the grain, so Scotland traditionally grew a lot of oats and barley and rye, but again, a lot of the varieties got lost. So again, trying to find those varieties and bring them back, and also trying to find wheat that grows well in Scotland. So today, actually, we're going to plant about 24 varieties of wheat and about 4 varieties of oats, 4 varieties of barley, and then some other smaller things like spelt and einkorn and emer.
In that, you're tracking like the evolution of wheat over time.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's important?
So what's happened with wheat is that wheat was first cultivated in the Fertile Crescent. So they took wild grasses and started to breed them so that they could get grain that was edible. And that was started with einkorn and emer as the ancestors of wheat. And then since then, humans are always breeding the varieties that they like. But also what happened is with the sort of industrialization of farming, they started to focus with wheat. They started to focus on they wanted things that were easy to combine instead of tall ones, which are like produce seed faster and things like this. That lost some of the flavour and qualities and nutritional value that some of the older varieties had. So with us though, what we're trying to do is grow a lot of different varieties just now to work out what suits our climate best, like specifically the sort of coastal climate of Edinburgh. And then the idea is we want to have a kind of a mixed population of different grains that we can grow and harvest together. Because if you can grow wheat and make your own flour that includes many varieties, then first of all, you're creating a resilient crop. So if one gets damaged by rust or whatever, the other ones hopefully will be okay. But also the nutritional content of that is much better than a monocrop. So there's that, but it's also bringing back seeds from extinction. Like there's the one of the things that we grew last year was some spring varieties of bare barley, which is a barley that has grown for centuries in Orkney and Shetland Islands, like the very, very top of Scotland. And that nearly completely died out when all the big farmers started farming huge amounts of wheat so they could just export it to those islands. But again, that then loses a whole culture. And that's the other thing, we've lost the culture of how to process grain. So with us, it's not just about figuring out which grains to grow, but what happened was it used to be that every household would grow their own wheat, mill it, make their own flour, grow their own oats, roll them, make their own porridge. I mean, porridge was a huge part of our diet. It was just like the normal thing for everybody to eat. And then then that all shifted and got industrialised. And the machinery that people just used to use every day has disappeared. It's gone. So at the moment, I don't have easy access because the machines that exist in Scotland are too big to thresh oats. So like if you're growing small to medium scale oats, it doesn't exist. There's no machinery in Scotland right now to process it, which is ridiculous because it's like it's a staple. So there's again a group of different organisations looking to figure out that there's these pieces of the puzzle that are all to do with the processing that we need to figure out as well. And then we also have flax, which was lurking around here somewhere. And so that's another thing, is that in Scotland traditionally grew lots of flax that was processed to make cloth. So we had a huge cloth industry.
Which would be linen.
Which would be linen, yeah. And like all through Fife and around Dundee, they were growing flax, and then they had all the sort of processing systems set up and factories for turning that into linen. And so then you had sustainable clothing, right? And now it's all unsustainable clothing that's made either with plastics or with cotton, which is a hugely problematic industry. And even seed. So it must have been that at some point there were many different varieties in Scotland of flaxseed, but there's nothing in Scotland now. Like people are going to have to start searching, I don't know, the sides of riverbanks for like the odd bit of flax that's growing. So we've started working with the Soil Association in Scotland and Edinburgh Art College, because Edinburgh Art College has a fashion department that's trying to promote sustainable fashion. So looking at, upcycling all the masses of mounds of wasted clothes that exist, but also looking at how do you grow your own clothes. So, which has been really nice because we trialled 3 varieties of flax for linen last year. And then Edinburgh Art College is starting to get the machinery for properly. It's called so all this like vocabulary around flax, but like getting it in so that you've got the threads of flax and then turning it into thread and weaving it. And it's good because we do these community events around it as well. So people get really excited about taking the flax and turning it into thread and then weaving it. They bring in a little loom. People get to weave their own linen and but with the idea of figuring out how do we bring this back into the system and how do we get people to recognise that our clothing industry is horrendous for the planet. But at the same time, we also grew just partly out of interest, but also because we use linseed a lot at one of the local bakeries. This is a variety of flax that is grown for the seed. So this is the flax that's grown from linen is very long stemmed because you want the stem, and you can't get seed and the stem because you have to harvest for linen before the seed is ripe. Obviously you can keep some if you want to save the seed, you would just let some of it go to seed, but when you're wanting to get it just for seed for eating or whatever, there's other varieties that are short stemmed. And it's quite funny because we sowed them all at the same time, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about because they all were growing exactly the same. And then this one went and this one stayed the same. That was quite satisfying. So yeah, but also in terms of varieties, it's also been about, the other thing that interests me is Edinburgh is a very diverse community of people from different cultures. So I think it's also important when we're talking about heritage varieties to recognise migrant heritage varieties. So, so I know quite a lot of growers from Kenya or Bangladesh or Ghana and Poland who are really keen on basically growing their food from home. And we have a lot to learn from that, right? So for example, this gourd here, so it's a friend of mine from Bangladesh started growing this in Edinburgh about 5-6 years ago, and it grows really well, despite the fact that it's originated in South or Central America. And then like hundreds of years ago it migrated to India, and in India they started growing it and they make desserts out of it and they make various things out of it, and then it made its way to Africa and Spain and Portugal, so hot countries. Wow. Yet it's the most vigorous, productive squash or gourd that we have ever grown on the farm. So, and it grows far up north, and it grows in Edinburgh. So this, you know, in terms of food security, we need to learn about these things, because if we get like a shockingly wet summer or something, quite likely a lot of our pumpkins and things could get mildewed too early, or, you know, if this is something like climate change. Whereas this, like, honestly, this thrives. Like, we were watching it in November going, oh my God, it's still trying to make flowers.
It just won't stop.
Just won't stop. And what's nice about it is when it grows, like I've grown it along the fence, and I grew it along the fence at Lawson Farm because I wanted everybody to walk past and go, what is that? And it works. Every day I get to hear people going, what is that? It's like, yes. And so when it's greener and younger, it makes a very, very good soups and curries. And when it gets older, the flesh is more kind of stringy. And in Bangladesh, they make a dessert out of it when it's like that. And actually in South America and in Portugal, they also make a dessert out of it. But so it's got all these different uses, and you can make these nice. You can make some containers, some natural non-plastic containers. They've got an incredibly hard shell. So people also make bowls out of it or spoons out of it. So you've got your sustainable crockery. Right. So it's a miracle thing. And the shoots are like a lot of pumpkins. The shoots are delicious. So it's about that, like recognizing what can be learnt from what the migrant communities bring to Edinburgh, because seeds have always travelled, and they always will travel, and they always travel with people, because people love their seeds, right? So, so I think all that's very, very interesting.
Which is a whole nother aspect of the farm with opening that space, like you said, at the allotment for people to grow their own food, then also appreciating that diversity and trying to connect the stories of those foods with where they're from and their own stories. And we were talking to one of the members, and she was sharing that, you know, the importance of food in our lives to our culture, and when we're uprooted from our space, what that means to us. But I feel like it's a beautiful part, not just recognizing, you know, Scotland's history with it, but incorporating the story.
So, and especially just now, I think when there's like, I don't know, we have a slogan that's all seeds are migrants, every seed has a story, because also just now there's a little bit of in some parts of this country, there's sort of some anti-migrant sentiment, and also wanting to sort of value what the contributions are that come from those communities who are very much part of Scotland and have been for so fucking long. I mean, it's ridiculous that is made out that they're not. So just trying to also highlight that.